Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, CEO.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, all honorable members.
Is your CFO with you?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, Chairperson.
Okay, Tammy, thank you very much. Honorable members, yesterday, over in the media, there was a video that was circulating where a young man from Proti.
Recording in progress.
Many young women. I don't know how, but the other thing that they were reporting on was that the lady, the partner, I don't know what is a partner. I don't know what is a partner. Is the person that is in love with was hungry, and then she decided to tell the boyfriend that she's hungry, and then the boyfriend went out to go and buy food. And then this young lady decided to open the fridge. And when she opened the fridge, she found a body or bodies, I don't know, but she found a head of a young woman, and she decided to call the neighbors that to make them aware on what she saw or found in the fridges of that house of the boyfriend. And it was all over the media, and they called the police. You know, it's something that is very scary. If you can see that video, it's very scary. But I think it's a concern because, you know, the president have declared issues of gender-based violence as one of the pandemics. And now every time when we were about to launch our 16 days of activism, it's like these things of these incidents of gender-based violence, they are happening more and more. I don't know whether it's satanic or it's demonic or it's what. I don't understand what's happening in our communities. So I think it's something that we need to take serious as members of parliament in our constituencies, and make our communities aware that there are these incidences, and try and find a way on how do we work together with our communities in ensuring that we protect our young girls against all these, you know, I don't want to use a strong language, but, you know, it's something that is unacceptable that our children now of late, they are not safe in the name of love from the people that they think they love or they like or they love. I'm not even sure what are our young people doing, because you see, if a person loves you, and a person who loves you, I don't think that person can treat you like that. But it's something that is it's concerning. And I think as a portfolio committee also, we need to check with those who are responsible to implement the National Strategic Plan on GBVF, on how far are they in terms of that. Maybe we need to also allocate a day where we'll call even the role-playing departments to come and account on the work that they've done so far. And that secretariat that the Department of Women have appointed, I think we need to invite them with the department to the meeting so that they can come and account. And I think that's what is important. But also, I saw last week over in the news papers and in the media, you know, in social media, that the board of the NYDA has been appointed, which I have checked with the CEO, but the information that he gave me and to Neliswa is that the board is going to start from the 1st of December. So today we're not going to have the board. We'll still have to have the CEO as the accounting authority, and they'll be the ones will be presenting their annual report. And after the 1st of December, then I'm sure next year the board will then come to Parliament so that they can be able now to resume their responsibilities as per their appointment. So I think as the portfolio committee, we have done what we're supposed to have done in ensuring that NYDA has a board, and it's -1. Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to share with you before we start our meeting. And anything else that I have forgotten regarding NYDA, I think that is all. So thank you very much, honorable members. I declare this meeting official open. And may I get apologies from Neliswa?
Thank you,
And you are all
Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to members, Chairperson, the NYDA, and the members of the Audit and Risk Committee. I have received 2 apologies, Chair, from Honorable Sondi, who has taken a car to a service, and also Honorable Hlengwa, who's going to attend the meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Health. Those are the 2 apologies that I have received, Chair.
You know, there's one thing that I want to raise today in this meeting. I have a concern about the attendance, non-attendance of members in the Portfolio Committee. I'm sure what you are going to do, we'll have to write a report as the Portfolio Committee on the attendance of members, so that you know, at the end of the day, people must not say we are petty or maybe we are funny. Non-attendance of a portfolio committee by members, I think now of late, it's worrying. I'm sure what we need to do as the committee is to, especially to all the whips from different political parties, it's a matter of concern that I want to raise with you as the chair of the portfolio committee, that maybe what we are going to do, we are going to write down a report and send to all of you on how are your members attending the portfolio committee, so that those that are not whips in their portfolio committee, I'm sure will send our concern to their political parties, because I think the way it can be okay. We are all adults and honorable members. They are earning every month, and they know that if you're not attending portfolio committee meetings, which are not sitting every day, what will be the excuse? You know, there are apologies that are accepted, but some of the apologies, seriously speaking, it's like, you know, people just send apologies for the sake of sending apologies. And it can be correct that before we start the meeting, then I'll have to ask the secretary to call members on whether they are coming to the meeting or they're not coming. It can be correct. So we have a responsibility as members of parliament that what we are aiming for, we need to work for it. So I'm just raising this. Neliswa and myself will have to look at all the registers so that we can deal with this thing of absenteeism by members once and for all. It's not that we are being spiteful, but it's a concern. Because in some instances, we'll have to check whether we are forming a quorum or we're not forming a quorum. In some instances, people will log in, but when you call a person is no longer there. So if members, they've logged in, but they're not participating in the meeting, so it's the same as you're absent from the meeting. Because why would you log in and when we are calling you to participate in the meeting and you are not responding? It means you're not there. So it's something that I felt that it's important. I need to raise in the meeting so that tomorrow people must not blame us that they've got negative reports in terms of their attendance and maybe we're not treating them fairly. So I'm raising it today. Thank you very much, Nelly. So those are the apologies, honorable members. Nelly, so what are you saying? Nelly, so
Hello, Chair.
you have sent me a message. What are you saying?
Yes. I've just received the email from the secretary for Honorable Maslangu, who's indicating that she's going to join the meeting later on. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. So the first item is what?
Chair, my hand has been up.
Honorable Masiko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. I think I had my hand up when Neliswa was reading the apologies. Ours is not to really interrogate each and every apology, Chairperson, but I think it's important for us to reflect on an apology from a member that says that they are taking a car to service. Now, the question is the absence going to be for the entire meeting or just for the starting of the meeting? Because when you take a car to service, you take it in the morning and then you probably return home because you don't really sit there the whole day, but the whole day. Our meetings are virtual, Chairperson 1, and 2 they are open a meeting. So there's nothing that we can say that participate. We are sitting. I know that we don't ordinarily reflect on the nature of the apology, Chairperson, but for me, it's quite worrisome if one would submit an apology to a sitting meeting that has been set quite a long ago. It says that they are taking a car to service. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masiko. Nelly, can you respond to what Honorable Masiko was saying?
Thank you, Chair. I've just received, Honorable Sondi sent me a WhatsApp to say I must just put my her apology to the committee. She's taking the car to the service. She never indicated if she's going to join the meeting later or not, Chair. She just said I must just put the apology. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. That is the response, Honorable Masiko. Thank you very much, honorable members. Let's allow the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee to make a presentation. Neliswa,
Check.
kanti umuntu okufanele present.
I see Miss Ayanda Mafuleka, she's here, Chair. I'm not sure about, she's got a problem, I don't know. But she has logged in. I see her name on the participant. She's here.
Can she open her mic and make a presentation?
Oh, yes. Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you once again for the opportunity. Let me greet all the members of the Portfolio Committee, the Chairperson, NYDA Management, and other members of the Audit Committee. Secretariat, maybe you might just want to assist with flighting the presentation from your side. Or Chair, are you comfortable that I just go through the presentation without being flighted?
No, Nelisa must assist to flight your report.
Okay, thank you so much. Whilst we are waiting for the Secretariat to flight their report, let me just, cite some of, still from the opening remarks of the Honorable Chair, as the Audit Committee to congratulate and welcome the appointment of the board. More, we are noting and welcoming the appointment of the chairperson and the deputy chair of the board being female. So really, we are encouraged by the appointment of the chairperson, female chairpersons, and the deputy chair. And as on behalf of the Audit Committee, we also like to wish well the NYDA board. Okay, thank you, Nenelisa. Without any further ado, I'll allow me then members to just go through the presentation. Okay, first slide. Okay. Mainly the first slide really is to provide the Portfolio Committee with the overviews of the Audit and Risk Committee pertaining to the 2021 financial year annual report, as well as take the members through our recommendations as well as the management action plans. Just as a way of a background, we were appointed in November 2020 as an interim audit committee for the NYDA in the absence of the board. For 2021, we've held three audit committee meetings. And as we were appointed and for this current financial year under review, these are some of the things that we hit the ground running. We reviewed the terms of reference of the audit charter, because we are guided by this signed charter, which is in line, by the way, with the requirements of the Treasury regulations, as well as its responsibility towards ICT governance. So that was also the part that we added, to our charter to oversee the ICT, governance in the entity. You can move to the next slide, Secretariat. Well, the overview then, as it pertains to the 2021 audit report, Chairperson, I must say the entity, the NYDA, obtained once again an unqualified audit opinion with insignificant findings. Well, there were just 9 findings, but I will get into the details of those. So in a layman's, term, actually they received, or they obtained, the clean audit, which they have, maintained for the past 7 years. Well, for me, as I believe 7, it is a good number. It is a holy number. So we commend the NYDA for maintaining the clean audit for the past 7 years. However, there were issues that were raised by the Auditor General, which as the Audit Committee as well, we had, been raising. in our quarterly report. It was just on two issues mainly that were not rated, that were rated yellow, that were not green. It was issues on human resource management. I will get to those in the latter part of the presentation, as well as information communication and technology, which is ICT. We'll also get into, to the details of the ICT issues. Chair, this is just the summary. Next slide. Summary, of all the findings, and really you can you can pick up, from the presentation that there has been a downward trend in the findings that have been raised by the AG, except with the ICT. Last year they had 1, and now they were sitting at 2. So really they've moved from 13 to 9 findings. But I will get into the nitty-gritties of those findings. Okay, then we can get to the findings as it pertains to the annual financial statement for financial year 2021. Really, these were the non-material findings, or where it's needed adjustments really for with regards to the annual financial statements. One talks to the accounts receivable. So in layman's term, those are the debtors, the provision for the debtors. Really, Chair, we without really getting into the specific of these issues. Really, these were just the accounting matters, which the CFO had corrected at year end. So hence these were the adjustments. The second one as well talks to the income statement adjustment relating to the intangible assets. This was also an accounting matter, an accounting entry, which the CFO really corrected at year end. The third one as well, it is also that similar finding, which was corrected. So what the AG finally placed, or rather gave opinion on, or expressed opinion on those financial statements. They were adjusted with those non-material adjustment. Hence, they were able to obtain a clean audit on the annual financial statements. Then, Chair, we can move to the compliance matters. Really, there were no major compliance issues, and you will see even from the table of the findings, there was none that pertains to the SCM. So the entity, in a nutshell, incurred no irregular expenditure and no fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Okay, then we can move then to the annual performance information report. The AOPO, because that is also what the AG looks into. Here we noted that the entity achieved 96% of its annual target. There was only one target that was not achieved, and there were no really major misstatements that were picked out by the AG on their annual performance information report. Maybe, Chair, just to link the efforts by management to this positive result. One can also link it to the work of the internal audit. Well, I'll come to that as well, because on a quarterly basis, they will look at also the performance information, just to give assurance and to play assurance responsibility on those. So really, when AG comes, most of the issues, they are not there because they would have been picked up by the internal audit, and management will have corrected those. So really, this gives a picture that the control environment has matured within the NYDA. But we'll get to the other issues that I just want to flag, for the attention of this committee as it pertains to the ICT as well. Chair, this is just also for your attention. As the Audit and Risk Committee, we also play oversight responsibility on risk management function, and one must say really, and also commend management for having ensured that there's an effective risk management systems that are in place. We do get the quarterly report on risk management and their risk mitigation plans for all the strategic risks that they had identified. They have been reporting to us on their quarterly implementation plan to mitigate those risks that might hamper the entity in executing on its strategic mandate. Really, Chair, what then one can just report is that for now, the current identified about 12 strategic risks. So that is that is commendable, because at the end of the day, after APP has been approved, then the entity must identify risks that might hamper it in implementing the APP, which then if then they mitigate, then they stand a good chance in achieving all of its targets. Then we can move to another area as well on litigations, because Chair, we do also play oversight on the legal matters, because they've got financial implications, they have financial risk, and they also have reputational risks for the organization. So these matters get discussed and ventilated in camera meeting. So one can really say the entity has a good systems in place to deal with their litigation and whistleblowers, whistleblowing rather. Apologies for the typo there. Matters. Yes, they do have a tip of anonymous hotline that records and registers such whistleblowing matters, which then they report to the committee through the internal audit. A chair, on this matter as well, we have strongly recommended that the entity must keep the litigation register, which they do have. But however, we've asked them to improve on it, just to include any prospect of success and any financial implications pertaining to these cases. Chair, I can share if then there are any questions on those cases that they are dealing with. Then we move to controls in the ICT. Chair, can I stop? Yes, Chair.
Yes. I think what is most important to us as the portfolio committee is to know the nature of cases that they are litigated for, because as just a statement of talking about litigation, so to us it doesn't say anything. It's just litigation on what, for, or for what. So the nature, you need to share with us the nature of cases that they have, that they are litigated for.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Precisely, I will do that. Can I just quickly finish the presentation whilst I am pulling out, the latest litigation report that we had looked at, so that I can provide this, committee with accurate information. Okay, if you may allow me, Chair.
Yes, it's okay.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. Then, Chair, we move then to the ICT governance. Well, in the main, the entity's ICT governance has indicated as a stable environment with regards to controls in ICT. One, from the policy perspective, yes, they are ICT policies that have been reviewed and approved. Chair, the only really issue is more on the ERP, system. The ICT project that is long overdue. Chair, it was only chair. It was only deployed and became live only in Q2. So, Chair, those were the concerns that were raised with the entity. On the period, the longer that this ERP, has taken. But where we were assured was on the financial implications, Chair, because that has become an anomaly in the public sector, where the ICT project, will start and they don't finish, and the costs keep on, escalating, Chair. So I will get into that, Chair, but really that is where our issues as far as the ICT governance is concerned, because a ICT project must be governed, as per the project charter as well. But so those were the issue that it took longer than expected. But however, it only got deployed in the Q2 of this financial year. So one can say then in the previous financial year, the ERP system was not, deployed live. So that project was still not completed. Then we can move to the next slide. Well, now, so on the, as I've said earlier, mostly has been on the ERP system, which really only went live in July. There were issues, around that, but we are satisfied. However, we are also still waiting for the assurance from the internal audit, where else, management, where we are assured that management have resolved, all the issues as it pertains to the ERP. But the issue that management have resolved not to fund existing legacy systems and to rather fast track the implementation of the ERP, which then was, came live in July 2021. On our quarterly meetings, we do get a CIO that comes and take us through where they are, because, Chair, one of the risks that we have identified is this cyber attacks and so forth. So in our last quarterly meeting, we were finished with the report on the vulnerability, of the NYDA systems. I mean, that has become one of the major risks as far as ICT is concerned, that the government has been grappled with. We have seen cyber attacks like in the likes of Transnet, Department of Justice as well. But yeah, we will still get a firmed up assurance report from internal audit. Chair, as far as the audit action plans, both the IT, from the IT, perspective, we are, confident with implementation of the ERP. As I said earlier, is that we will just get, the internal audit then to assist us and conduct an ICT review on the system, so that we can say we are 100% confident that all the dot has been, all the I's have been dotted and all the T's have been crossed. So this will be in the current financial year's internal audit cycle. Okay. Chair, these just to take you then to the next slide. Probably as I step off on the action plans, Chair, as far as the audit action plans, for the internal audit and external audit, really this entity has worked to resolve those. So it was just more on the ICT, matters. Challenges and what has been our recommendations, Chair. Really, one has been on the fact that this entity is able to to meet its target, 96% of its target. But what we have sharply raised with them is they must just consider reviewing their targets, because they seem to be setting their targets very low. Yes, I know that there was a little bit of a pushback from management on this due to the budgetary constraints. However, they've received an additional funding, and not only that, Chair. Unfortunately, this entity has a very important mandate, towards our youth, and which, by the way, makes up, the category for high unemployment rate. So really it is through these entities such as NYDA where such youth or rather such challenges being faced by our youth could be addressed. So really they should look into setting their target very high, rather not low. And Chair, we debated on this, where we even said, we gave recommendations in their costing model as well for their implementing agents, right? To say really they must look into that, even the project management fees. We felt as the committee, the project management fees, they are very high. It is at 15%. So they must look into that, so that the funds that they have, they could reach the bigger pool. Chair, we had also recommended to the entity that they must really look into their vision and the mission statements in the future, because both the vision and the missions, they make no reference to the economy, while the core mandate really of this entity or this agency speaks to the upliftment of youth toward economic participation. Obviously, Chair, maybe with the incoming board, it is something that they must also look into. So really our recommendation was, it is high time that as much as this entity is obtaining clean audit, but their presence and their work must be felt on the ground by the millions of our youth. Chair, we have the POPI Act, so we have also strongly recommended to the entity that they should ensure co-compliance with POPIA, and we've seen that the ICT, we have recommended that in the ICT report, they should indicate regular POPIA assessments, the gap analysis, as well as the strategy to mitigate risk. And we were finished with the with the POPIA checklist that the entity has devised, and they are implementing, and we had made our input to that POPIA or rather that POPIA checklist. So in a nutshell, one can say as the committee, we are generally comfortable and generally pleased with how the entity is conducting its business. And the fact that the agency seems to function in a highly controlled environment with adequate risk management systems. So, Chair, that is all from my side. Then, Chair, if you can allow me, then to go to the Chair to then pull out the litigation report. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Done?
I am missing you, Chair.
I was asking if you are done.
Yes, Chair. Now I am just pulling quickly the report, Chair, of the litigations. Okay, we have the September 1, Chair. If unfortunately, I have it on the Word document, Chair. I don't have the slide.
Okay.
Chair, without wasting time, allow me just to, it is password protected. I'm just quickly tracing the password. Maybe, Chair, you might want to give the opportunity, or rather let me head back to you whilst I am getting the password. We normally get this report password protected. Thanks, Chair.
You know, when I was listening to your presentation, and you are confident and proud that they've got good in terms of governance and how they manage their cases at NYTA. You are happy about it, and you know, I'm asking myself that you are also doing the same work with the department. So are you seeing the difference between NYDA in terms of their systems and how do they do things, and vis-a-vis the department? Chairperson?
Chair. Okay, so Chair, allow me then to respond to the question. Well, Chair, when one were to compare the department and the entity in terms of the the systems and the control environment, when one talks of the control environment, that is all encompassing. But where I just want to zoom in, where then I will share or rather back a a slightly different view is on the systems, ICT systems for the entity, where as we have said, Chair, they've only been able to implement their system now, and there were also legacy systems that had issues, Chair. So but then one vis-a-vis to the department, one has not really done that comparison per se, but they are also not in the green as far as the ICT systems and the ICT processes are concerned, Chair. Chair, I do now have the report on the litigation matters, Chair. So basically, Chair, they are, I will categorize, the litigation matters into three. So there is a one employees relation, matter, Chair, where a former employee is claiming compensation from the NYDA, to the tune of about 100,000 rands, Chair. And the matter, Chair, it is relate to a dispute between a certain SITA, Chair. I can name that SITA, I mean, but I will be guided by the committee as well, Honorable Chair. But it is a dispute between a SITA and a service provider, that is the implementing agent, on a program which was a partnership with NYDA. So now the SITA is willing to pay that implementing agent, the service provider, but the service provider is also claiming interest on that late payment or that non-payment. So really from the NYDA perspective, there is no financial exposure However, there is a reputational risk, or the reputational risk exposure, because that program was done with partnership with NYDA. Then, Chair, the third, a category is this is also where our concerns are. We can vouch names, but I would prefer then, Chair, maybe we might have to send that report, where there are 5 matters where NYDA is litigating service providers. They are implementing agents who have failed to deliver, those, equipment. For example, there was the containers to the grant beneficiaries. And though the NYDA is pursuing the action to force these service providers to deliver, and if they fail, they will have to blacklist them from doing business with government. But our issue, Chair, is, is this consistent, issue where, their service providers don't deliver, yet they have been paid, right? So then they don't deliver to the intended grant beneficiaries. For me, we have strongly recommended that the entity looks at the root cause, because then pursuing them, after the effect, that is another. So, but they should fix where the problem is. So you get these grant beneficiaries, sending complaints that they are, up until today, they are still waiting for the container or the equipment that was, granted, or rather, that was promised to them. So, Chair, those are the 3 categories of the litigation matters that the NYDA is looking at. Hence, then, in my earlier comments, or whereas the committee, we recommended that we want to, to get the finer details on the financial exposure and how much they'll be paying for the legal fees and so forth, and and so forth. So that has not been furnished with us. So those are the 3 cases. I thank you, Chair, and then I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Can I now get hands from honorable members if there are any clarity-seeking questions? Honorable Masondo, is that the only hand? Honorable Masondo?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would like to greet all the members present and the Audit Committee. Chair, I just have few questions, but maybe I'll be covered. Regression in financial management from 79%, 71%. Why was the regression in financial management? What remedial action has been implemented to avoid further regression? And the improvement in performance information reporting from 64% to 79%. This is commendable. Regression in compliance from 93% to 86%. Why was there a regression in compliance? What remedial action has been implemented to avoid further regression? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masondo. Honorable Piri.
Thanks, Chair, and greetings to colleagues and members who are in the platform, but best. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Piri. Honorable Masigo, you are in now, ne? Honorable Masigo, you are in. Oh, okay, sure. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, there is a good story to tell. And thank you very much for the work that you have done. Hopefully, good things that the NYDA is doing, you'll be able also to recommend them to the department. so that those recurring findings they can be changed, and we see progress as the portfolio committee from the department. And next, in this current financial year, next year, we'll want to see at least a clean audit, an unqualified report with a clean audit. Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let's move to the next item, which is what, Nelly?
It's presentation by the NYDHA on annual report for 2020-2021 financial year. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me extend greetings to all of the members and you, Chairperson, and thank you for the opportunity to present the NYDA annual report for 2020-2021. Today's presentation, we will look at what is the context to our annual performance plan for the year. Sorry, the annual report for the year. We'll touch on key issues that were identified, some of the key challenges that we face, the progress on the state of the nation and the medium-term strategic framework goals, the details of our annual performance report for 2020-2021, the progress that we're making with regards to integrated youth development, recommendations from the BRR process and our responses to those. The CFO will take you through the annual financial statements, and the chair of the audit committee has already touched on the majority of the audit report, but just management's perspective on the audit outcome. These are all of the matters that we were requested to present on in the letter we received from the chairperson of the portfolio committee. If we look at the context to the annual report, the majority of the financial year 2020-2021 was impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. We experienced a fundamental loss in resources. Our budget was cut by about 140 million rand through reductions from the National Treasury, but also many donors could not fulfill their full commitment to the organization. So it was a very tough year for the agency. As a result, there was adjustments to targets, but we are glad that we're bouncing back, and I think we're bouncing back in a bigger way than before. We, of course, had to adapt to a digital environment. The majority of the year, we worked on a 50% rotational work schedule. We were getting back to about 100% by the end of the year, November, December 2020. But again, given the increase in infections in 2021, we went to a 50% schedule. I'm happy, though, to report to honorable members that as we are today, we are experiencing good progress in our vaccine rollout as an agency, and that we are back at 100% capacity, offering services to young people at all our centers across the country. Of course, we had to be agile and we had to implement programs specifically to respond to the pandemic. From our perspective, this was the Youth Micro Enterprise Relief Fund. We also had to support government's overall programs, which included supporting young people to claim unemployment insurance if they had become unemployed or temporarily unemployed during the pandemic, providing support to the rollout of the Social Relief of Distress Grant, as well as starting the implementation of phase 1 of the Presidential Employment Stimulus. And we had achieved 23 out of our 24 targets for the year under review. We also supported the rollout, or the first phase rollout of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. This involved the opening of the National Pathway Management Network, SAYouth.mobi, the Basic Education Employment Initiative, the 1,000 Businesses in 100 Days campaign, and the piloting of a revitalized National Youth Service Program. We received the 7th consecutive clean audit outcome from the AG, no irregular or fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And I think we're quite excited, although we were 1 quarter late than our target, we are satisfied that we've now implemented a fully online system, meaning that young people, wherever they are, wherever they live, can book their training, they can lodge their CVs, they can apply for products and services, and they no longer have to travel long distances to access the NYDA. I think another exciting development, and one that we've raised from the portfolio committee, and we appreciate the PC support in this matter, is around the budget of the NYDA. But we're relatively excited that we've been allocated additional funding from 21-22 onwards, and our budget has now been increased by over R1 billion. Also feels that there's more private sector and public sector that wants to partner with the organization. This is helping us to increase and scale our products, and we appreciate the PC support in getting us to this point. Some of the key issues that we identified in the year that has passed, I think we should never underestimate the impact of COVID-19 on our economy. GDP growth is now at a 90-year low. Youth unemployment is at its highest rate ever of 63%. In many ways, the pandemic, not only in South Africa, but globally, is reversing gains that we've made in the last 25 years in our fight against poverty and inequality. Despite the fact that there has been recovery since lockdown regulations were lifted, we know that there's still a long way to go. South Africa's youth unemployment crisis rate was already a crisis before COVID-19, but young people will struggle as economists look at a lockdown generation with reduced employment prospects, disrupted education, and more obstacles in the search for work. This presents a risk that pushes many young people further into poverty and being permanently locked out of the economy. We know that estimates say that COVID-19 has taken away anywhere between 1 to 2 million jobs from South Africa's economy. We need solutions to assist the economy not only to recover, but also rebuild towards a more inclusive and a more resilient future. We know that the formal sector is a critical engine for productivity and growth, but the formal sector cannot ever provide all the answers to the growing numbers of the unemployed. While it's important to keep the formal sector afloat, we must innovate on ideas to support and sustain the informal sector. As we have safe return to work protocols, we can also support informal traders online using innovation. Informal businesses must thrive with proper support, such as access to platforms and market linkages. And the COVID-19 crisis highlights the critical importance of the informal sector in income generation across many sectors. Our research indicates that out of the roughly 1.8 million small, micro, and medium enterprises, less than 1/3 are led by youth, and slightly more than 1/3 are headed by women. For young men, the most common sector occupations are taxi drivers, motor vehicle mechanics. For young women, beauticians and street food vendors. And if we support these young men and women, we'll help to drive a more inclusive recovery. And if we don't, the poverty gap will grow and inequality will increase. Another important matter is that access to data has emerged as one of the most significant barriers to equality during the lockdown. South Africa has some of the highest data costs on the continent. And when we speak to young people, they often opt to buy smaller data bundles more often, even if the price per unit is higher, because on average, young people say they're spending 360 Rand a month on data, and they're not using it necessarily just to be on social media, but they use it to job search, they use it to make online applications, they do research, and they do academic work. 63% of young people do not have an income, and many youths are using the childcare grant to support themselves. Young people are very eager to learn, but data barriers are significant. Young people need to stay busy and employable, but they're struggling to make ends meet. If we lower or we remove data costs, young people are readily more able to access information, seek learning and job opportunities, and engage with others. When we change our sites to become data-free, young people's online behavior changed from logging in after midnight when data is cheaper to even more during the day. Affordable data allows young people to be more productive during daytime hours. It assists them with psychosociological benefits, as well as gives them access to online communities when there's physical distancing. If we continue to lift up our young people's voices, they will help to lead us out of the crisis that we face. I think some of the key challenges that we would like to highlight to the committee is that as much as organizations like NYDA or the Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator or the Youth Employment Service excuse me, can do to address the high levels of youth unemployment, we must address what is always the major elephant in the room, is that of the 1 million young people who start grade 1 every year, only 500,000 of them end up sitting for their matric examinations. There is a lot of work that is being done in the basic education sector. The Basic Education Employment Initiative will also start improving educational outcomes as we provide support to teachers, as we provide support to learners through homework assistance and teaching assistance. But there needs to be more accountability from the Department of Basic Education, from teachers, from school governing bodies, principals, and parents in the basic education system if we were to reverse the trend of dropouts and we move towards a zero dropout rate in our basic education system. I think as much as we can make interventions as well around employment and entrepreneurship, the lack of a growing economy means that young people are locked out of economic participation. It means their access to the labor market is blocked by incumbents in the labor market. And therefore, at a macro level, we have to support, we have to really, as government, ensure that we sort out major issues like the security of energy supply, the allocation of spectrum. I mean, we speak about the issues associated with spectrum, and we speak about it at a high level, but I've shown in the earlier slides how the high cost of data impacts on a young person at an individual level. You know, that's data. Let's talk about how load shedding impacts on a young person or a young entrepreneur and the impact that that is having. The reduction of crime and violence. Chair, you touched on GBV in your opening remarks. In a similar way, township businesses who don't necessarily have insurance and security, they are so heavily impacted by crime and violence in townships and rural areas. Effective local government, all of these are important matters in us being able to grow the economy and create a more sustainable future for our young people. From an NYDA perspective, declining infrastructure, I know members have raised when they've done site visits to the NYDA that sometimes computers may not be working. And it's always a tricky balancing act around what the money or the resources that we want to put in the hands of young people and what we spend on maintaining of infrastructure. And it is a finely balancing act, and it was made a little bit more difficult by COVID and the budget cuts, but we're confident that we are on the road to recovery on that one. In the State of the Nation 2020, the President committed on a broad employment intervention that above and beyond just economic growth would look at creating jobs and opportunities for young people that could address the youth unemployment crisis. In this, there is many social partners. It's not a government-led program. There's social partners, the private sector, public sector, and civil society are involved. And through NADLAC, many of these proposals are caucused and are pushed through to support young people. It's also not that the youth unemployment work exists in isolation. It exists alongside the work that is being done in the presidency around infrastructure, around Operation Vulindlela, which looks at, amongst others, the ease of doing business in South Africa, and some of the other issues I've touched on around spectrum and load shedding. And then the youth employment intervention forms part of the employment stimulus, which is additional funding which has been granted by National Treasury to implement high impact programs for employment, particularly employment of young people. There's also existing processes to fix industrial policy in the country, to make it easy to do business, to look at the skills gaps in the country, and to look at where we already have programs like EPWP and CWP, instituting some sort of reform so we fix the challenges inside those programs. In terms of phase one of the presidential employment stimulus, the target was 694,000 jobs and livelihood opportunities. Of that, 551,000 was achieved. 84% of the opportunities and livelihood support went to young people, and more importantly, 58% went to females. The budget for phase 1 was about 12.6 billion rand, and this focuses on new jobs to be created as well as retention of jobs in the economy as well. In terms of the major programs that were implemented during phase 1, these were the Department of Basic Education, school assistance, and job retention. And I think it's good news that the program has been extended. Honorable members might know in their communities from the 1st of November, young people have started work across the 26,000 public schools in the country. In terms of support to the agricultural sector, about 75,000 beneficiaries assisted small-scale subsistence farmers. There was a very important sector that supports particularly young women, early childhood development, and social workers. About 25,000 ECD facilities were supported with 125,000 beneficiaries. In the Department of Environmental Affairs, Forestry, and Fisheries, there was environmental programs that supported young people as well. The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture issued a stimulus that supported about 20,000 applicants in the creative sector. The DTIC, through the Global Business Services, supported 8,000 jobs for young people. The Department of Science and Innovation, working together with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, supported about 2,000 young professionals. And I know that what we've seen in the economy is an uptick on graduate unemployment. But what we find is that where government is able to provide a graduate with the first opportunity, those young people transition very quickly out of a government program into a more sustainable. So a lot of the times with our graduates, it's about giving them that first opportunity where government can step in and provide that. And then there's a much better pathway into a more longer term opportunity. And then through COCTA, the Department of Transport and the Department of Health, there was support particularly to community healthcare workers. What we are excited about is that National Treasury has allocated funds for phase 2 of the program, a bit less than the 12.5 billion last year, 11 billion this year. It had to go through a budget process and departments were invited to bid, but the funds must be spent within this financial year. So we've got about 7 months for implementation. I've given a breakdown of the program. So some of the programs are coming back, like the Basic Education Employment Initiative, simply because it's so scalable. It supports so many young people in the economy. But I think where NYDA is excited is that you see there the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, a national youth service program for 35,000 young people, really revitalizing the national youth service in South Africa to the value of 400 million. And then the last one at the top there, again, support to youth enterprises through the NYDA for about 30 million rand. And the total program is about 11 billion rand for support to young people. So government is putting means behind support.
CEO.
Chair.
CEO. Go back to that slide.
I'm back, Chair.
Yeah, talk to this slide again.
Oh, sorry, Chair. So let me just quickly go through maybe the programs and the impact on young people. So there's a number of programs that have been designed and are in the process of being implemented. So, for example, the Basic Education Employment Initiative has been extended for another year. There is support to metropolitan municipalities for innovation around public employment programs in metros. We know that the urban-rural divide, there is a trend towards urbanization, and therefore providing employment support to metropolitan municipalities is important. There's support now for social employment, looking at work that's required to be done around gender-based violence, around community-based care, early childhood development, and the Social Employment Fund focuses on that. There's work around National Youth Service, which I've spoken about. In the Department of Cooperative Governance, we know that our water infrastructure is under strain, and there's potential programs for young people to do work in waste separation and treatment solutions. The Department of Forestry and Fisheries and Environment is doing environmental programs, and this is very important, particularly as it relates to as it relates to climate change. We know that's a big conversation at the moment. The Department of Higher Education and Training is implementing programs around digital skills. We estimate that there's a shortage, that there's 60,000 digital skills jobs which could be filled immediately if we could give young people the skills to do that. So there's money being set aside for that. University graduates, unemployed graduates, there's a specific program now to respond to unemployed graduates. The Department of Social Development is still providing support to ECD sector and to social workers. The Department of Health is providing support to staff and assistant nurses, particularly around port health screening, and that's in specific response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Tourism, we know tourism was a very hard-hit sector, so there's support to 40 provincial tourism attractions and young people being employed as tourism monitors. In the Department of Science and Innovation, there's programs for young people to be environmental champions, water graduates, as well as other programs. Sports, arts and culture, there is support for the District 6 Museum, the Hip Hop Museum, and the Pansi Museum. For the Department of Employment and Labor, there's counseling at labor centers for young people, in particular, psychosociological support for young people at the Department of Employment and Labor centers to assist them with career guidance and assistance in finding employment closest to where they live. Again, support to some small-scale subsistence farmers, early childhood development I've mentioned, and then support to the NYDA to double its target. Generally, we support 1,000 entrepreneurs with grant funding a year. The National Treasury has given us, and presidents have given us a target of doubling that to 2,000 entrepreneurs. And then there's support for the National Pathway Management Network, assisting young people in digitally being connected to opportunities, as well as I've mentioned the high cost of data. The Department of Communications and Technologies will be implementing a broadband access fund, which will support 50,000 marginalized and vulnerable households with low cost access to the internet. If we go into more of the detail around the NYDA, so if we go through our annual performance information for the year under review, under Program 1, which is administration, the indicators were the number of NYDA quarterly management reports that we were required to produce, the implementation of our annual workplace skills plan, as well as the development and implementation of the annual procurement plan and the production of quarterly procurement reports. And all of those targets were met during the financial year under review. Of course, we always look at raising funds outside of the NYDA budget. Our target for the year was 60 million. We achieved 88 million. We see the CETAs as critical partners for development and support. Our target was 4 CETA partnerships, and we achieved that, as well as 2 partnerships with technology companies. We achieved 3 partnerships with technology companies, which is very important from a digital and a tech perspective. I'm also happy to say is that really, as our budget has grown, it's allowed us increased leverage to be able to partner with more organizations. And CETA environment, there's 21 CETAs. We really, in our next financial year, we're aiming to move these 4 CETA partnerships into at least 10 partnerships, because skills is a critical area which we want to focus on. In terms of reviewing and implementing our ICT strategic plan, that was done for the year under review, as well as achieving targets around integrated communication and marketing and producing an NYDA strategic risk register. Just to give you some of the programs that are run under administration, is that one of the things we focused on is the Tusano Fund, which aims to assist young people with a variety of things, but mainly young people with education and civil society interventions. We have assisted many young people over the years with clearing historical debt. I think honorable members will know this is a major issue, is that young people start out, they sometimes get defunded by NSFAS, and they can't complete their studies. Sometimes they have issues in their life. We have lots of students with historical debt that can't graduate. So here's a young woman who we've been able to assist with clearing her historical debt. She has now been able to complete it. She's entered into a graduate program with MasterCard Southern Africa, and we've assisted a young person with their transition, and many young people are assisted through our Tusano Fund with clearing of historical debt, but also in supporting their non-governmental organizations. In terms of Program 2, which is Program Design, Development and Delivery, the number of youth-owned enterprises supported with financial interventions, the target was 1,500. We achieved 2,300, mainly because of the work we did around the relief fund and the large number of fundable applications that we received for the relief fund. The target of number of youth supported with business consultancy services, that target was not met. Our target was 2,500. We achieved 1,873. COVID-19 did impact, but we also had a dispute with the ICT service provider who was really overcharging us on the system, and we had to draw a line in the sand on that one there. So we were not held to hostage. We're happy that through our ERP system we've resolved that fine. In terms of the number of jobs created and sustained through supporting entrepreneurs and enterprises, the target was 5,000. We achieved 8,600, and that speaks to the increased number of enterprises that we were able to support. In terms of the number of jobs that were facilitated through placements, we achieved close to 5,000 on that program. In terms of the number of young people capacitated with skills, the target was 1,250. We achieved close to 2,800. In terms of the number of young people participated with skills to participate in the economy, the target was 2,250. We achieved 3,300. Just in terms of the age groupings and the male and female breakdown, and the majority of grants are still uptake from 26 years onwards. We still find that young people between the ages of 21 to 25 are more keen on pursuing job opportunities. 52% male, 46% female, 2% young people with disabilities. The majority of businesses supported in the services sector, but also strong support in manufacturing, tourism, consultancy, and marketing. A big campaign that was run was the 1,000 businesses in 100 days. Here's one example of just one of 1,000 business, Mapenkani Daughters Trading, established in 2017 by 5 young Black women who are passionate about events management. They did not allow lack of resources to stop them from starting up their own enterprises. They received grant funding of 50,000 Rand from our Groblersdal Center. They specialize in equipment hire services. They've planned and coordinated weddings, kids' birthday celebrations, corporate functions, and cocktail parties. This is an example of how young women particularly are being empowered through the NYDA products and services. A big program that we ran was the Relief Fund. Difficult to run under COVID, but we did a lot of work there. 57% male, 43% female. We've shown the provincial breakdown of it there, and then also the breakdown of the sectors that were supported with the programs. Just in terms of examples of beneficiaries, here's Lupomla's Joko's passion for leadership. He has a business which is focused on conference facilitation and public speaking. Of many of these businesses could not operate. He was a beneficiary of the relief fund. It allowed him to give a bit of money to his employees, to settle his telephone bill, to pay his rent for his businesses. And this is an example of how the relief fund assisted in keeping young people's businesses alive. In terms of job placements, we've shown the sectors where young people are placed in job opportunities. Here, there's a much more intense focus on the 21 to 25 age group, which are placed in job opportunities with about 68% female and 32% male. Here's a young person who has been supported. It's Abongile Tsotsi from Project Glen in Soweto. He wanted to complete his he's completed his honors. He couldn't find employment. We were able to place him in the KZN Transport Department for monitoring and evaluation role. If we look at the last program, also not the last program, the National Youth Service Program, the targets were to implement a national youth service communications and marketing strategy that was achieved. We registered 38 new national youth service programs against a target of 20. We established 37 new partnerships to deliver on national youth service programs. And we designed the Presidential Youth Service as well as the Higher Education Youth Service. We really, again, just to reiterate, the design of that Presidential Youth Service led to that funding of 400 million from the National Treasury. In terms of just an example of a National Youth Service program, the Collins Chabane School of Artisan is a legacy program of the National Youth Service in memory of the late minister. It contributes towards the reduction of unemployment, skills development, and income transfer. It brings together national government, provincial government, and local government. 60 young people are obtaining their qualifications in plumbing, water, and wastewater treatment, supported by the TVET colleges. They offer service to their communities in this aspect, and they're able to have a sustainable income. Lastly, the fourth program is research and policy. In that regard, we conduct 3 quarterly customer service surveys. We conducted 1 impact program evaluation, the annual report on government-wide priorities, as well as 2 youth outlook status reports. I'll share in my upcoming slides around our plans for the integrated youth development strategy, but I think we're also doing a couple of exciting studies. One is into our grant program, which we'll present to the committee during our second quarter presentation on the monitoring and evaluation of our youth entrepreneurship programs, particularly the grant program, as well as we're doing an interesting research study around how young people are using the 350 Rand grant and what kind of outcomes it's leading towards, particularly as there's a major lobby for the extension and the permanency of that grant. In terms of integrated youth development, we have presented to the committee the integrated youth development plan and strategy. We've developed the guidelines for it, and we've made recommendations to the president. This is NYDA taking on a broader role of coordinating government beyond just the work that we do on our performance information, so across the 5 pillars and aligned to the medium-term strategic framework. But a big part of what we've said is that we don't only want to just coordinate. We want to publish a report every year on not only what NYDA is achieving, but what government-wide, including the private sector, what are the achievements that are being made for young people. Yeah? And then to provide detailed feedback to the portfolio committee and the youth sector to progress on what we're doing around integrated youth development and to lobby for change where that is required. In terms of the budget review and recommendations, there was a few recommendations that were made in the BRR process. Number 1 was that we should develop an audit action plan that relates to recommendations which are made by the Auditor General. This action plan must address the root cause of the issues, and it should be submitted to the committee. In each of our quarterly reports, the CFO has presented our ongoing action plans, and we are also satisfied that the AGSA has indicated that when they did our follow-up review, the majority of those findings have been resolved. We should provide quarterly progress reports. I think we've done that. We should ensure ongoing monitoring of our grant program. As I mentioned in my previous slide, that process is being concluded, and we will present to the committee when we present our second and our third quarter information, our grant program annual evaluation. We should continue with a dedicated focus on young women and youth with disabilities. And I think as far as possible, we're trying to report on young women and youth with disabilities as well. Chair, I would just like to pause there for now and hand over to the CFO to take the committee through the annual financial statements for 2020-2021.
Thank you, CEO, and greetings to the Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable members and colleagues and the Honorable Chairperson of the Audit Committee. I'll just start with the current year background. So in 2020-2021, the financial year started with the country on hard lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The entity continued to operate remotely during the hard lockdown, but normal operations effectively resumed in June 2020. COVID-19 had a negative impact on the entity's budget as National Treasury had to implement budget cuts. The entity's budget cuts was 144 million from a budget of 545 million, which then got us to an adjusted budget of 401 million. This meant that the entity had to review its annual performance plan and remove or reduce some of its targets. Budget cuts were mainly sourced from administrative expenses, travel, and outreach-related activities. Outreach and travel obviously being affected by the lockdown regulations. In 2021, the entity implemented the COVID-19 relief fund. I think CEO has actually expanded on it and gave some statistics, but we had to spend about 12 million of our own funds to assist young entrepreneurs who were affected by the pandemic. Next slide. And then I will then just do a high-level analysis of the financial position / the balance sheet. You know, the financial position just presents the assets and liabilities of the entity. And under assets, you know, got receivable from exchange. And these are mainly made up of prepayments and sundry debtors. Prepayments relate to prepayment of Microsoft licenses, while sundry debtors relate to amounts outstanding from our donors for admin fees. The entity managed to collect outstanding amounts from donors in the current year compared to the prior year. Receivables from non-exchange have slightly increased, mainly due to an increase in staff loans, as the pandemic had also had a negative impact, or even for our staff members. Cash and cash equivalents also show a picture of the impact of the budget cuts in our cash flow, where you saw a reduction from 60 million last year down to 37 million in the current financial year. Property, plant, and equipment has reduced compared to the prior year, and this is due to, you know, the reduction on the budgeted capex, as the entity was not opening new offices as compared to the previous financial year. The increase in intangible assets is due to milestone payments made for the ERP system, which we've now gone live in the current financial year. Liabilities, payables from exchange transactions have reduced from the prior year. This reduction is due to the reduced budget. So obviously, as the budget reduces, we were actually committing ourselves less to the service providers, as well as reduced expenditures. Employee cost provisions are mainly made up of leave and performance bonus provision. Due to budget cuts specifically to employee costs, no provision was made for performance bonuses. Deferred income relates to unspent donor funds at year end. Lockdown and delayed transfer of funds had an impact on the slight increase of the deferred income. Deferred expenses relate mainly to leasehold improvements, and the entity has new leases that were entered into during 1920, which are now showing their full impact in the 2020-2021 financial year. Next slide. And this is just the breakdown, and we have provided the members with the financial statements. I was just analyzing this. Maybe next slide. On financial performance, which is the income statement, and under revenue, grant income reduced, and this was due to the budget cuts, as I've explained. Donor funds also reduced due to the reduced number of partners we had agreements with in the current year. Interest income reduced because obviously as you hold less cash and you have budget cuts, it means you're receiving less cash, and thus the reduced interest income. Other income mainly relates to an insurance claim that we received during the current year. In under expenditure, overall expenditure, except for grant disbursement, had decreased compared to the prior year due to budget cuts. Grant disbursements increased due to the 1,000 Businesses Challenge and the COVID Youth Relief Fund, which did not exist in the prior year. Some funds were also redirected from activities that could not be performed during lockdown. An example would be the training and outreach programs. The deficit in the budget versus actual is due to depreciation, amortization, and asset write-offs, which the entity does not budget for, as these are non-cash. Next slide. This is just the financial performance showing the deficit at the end there of 4.7 million, which I've explained. Next slide. And then this is statement of budget versus actual, the 15 million deficit at the bottom, 15.8 at the end. That's made up of your depreciation, amortization, as I've stated. Next slide. Yeah. Then on donor fund disbursements as well. This is a note. It's note 22 on the financial statements, and obviously, as I say, these are the different funders that would have actually assisted us during the year in terms of donor funding. The total came to about 27 million, reduced from 47 million in the previous year. But I've explained the reasons for the reduction. Next slide. Going concern, obviously the entity is required based on the GREP standards to actually state whether they are a going concern or not. And obviously we consider the entity to be a going concern, and I think the auditors also did agree, because the agency's total assets exceed the total liabilities. The agency has accumulated equity surplus reserves over the previous financial years. The agency holds sufficient cash reserves to meet debt obligation as they become due and payable. Also, the agency received the allocation of 471 million from the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, which will fund the operations and projects in the 21-22 financial year. The NYDA is also established by an Act of Parliament with an aim to achieve a specific government mandate of youth development. Parliament has not given any indication of changing delivery method on youth development, and there are no indications that suggest that they will do so in the foreseeable future. The NYDA holds within its budget a 5 million contingency reserve, which can aid in respect of any further budget deficit. So with this, these are the reasons why we consider the entity to be a going concern, and it should operate in the foreseeable future. Next slide. Contingencies, commitments, and events after reporting date. Contingent liabilities relate to legal disputes and potential claims against the entity. The current year exposure is 1.1 million. I think the chairperson of the audit committee did actually go through what is sitting in our legal register and legal claims register. There were no contingent assets in the current financial year. Only commitments to the value of 361,000 are reported in the current financial year, and those relate to furniture and computer equipment that we had not actually taken delivery of at the end of the financial year. There were no events after 31 March to date that would have affected the financial statements of the entity, and there were no irregular nor fruitless wasteful expenditures reported in the current financial year. Next slide. And then on the audit report, just to highlight a few things on the audit report that has also been submitted. I think this has been reiterated by the chairperson of the audit committee as well as the CEO. We achieved our 7th consecutive clean audit in 2020-21. The opinion from the report is the financial statements presents fairly in all material aspects the financial position of the entity as at 31 March 2021. And that is stated on paragraph 2 of the audit report. There were no material findings on performance information as per paragraph 14 of that report. Paragraph 17 then mentions that there were insignificant findings on the performance information, of which management subsequently adjusted. I think the chairperson did mention that as well. Paragraph 24 states that the Auditor General did not identify any significant deficiencies in the internal controls of the entity. And the number of management report findings were reduced from 13 to 9. And I think the chairperson of the audit committee also mentioned that. And the Auditor General SA assessed the NYDA's financial health as good, despite the impact of the pandemic. And then just the ICT findings from AGSA. The one was inadequate implementation of user access management controls around Great Plains system inadequate configuration controls on VIP leave application, and the actions that we are busy with is that we are now we are going on to our integrated ERP system that we actually went live in July 2021. And then we expect that this finding should not reoccur because we're no longer going to use the Great Plains system come this financial year. We have fixed the configuration and ensure that there is a future check on the VIP leave application. Next slide.
I think, Chair, that's the presentation from our side. Thank you for the opportunity to let us present, and we'll hand back to you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, CEO and CFO. I think what I have observed is one good thing that you are doing of monitoring service providers if they are delivering on what is supposed to be delivered by them and it's paid for. Continue doing that, and so that you can at least help our young people who are being blocked by those service providers who are being let down by those service providers by not delivering whatever they have ordered from them. So I want to commend you on with regards to that. Over to you, honorable members. Those are the two presentations by the NYDA, and keep up the good work of getting an unqualified report, clean report. We are hoping that as you've been doing a good job, CEO, you'll continue to do your work as per what you've been doing all these years with the new board that have been appointed that will be starting on the 1st of December. So we're not expecting that now your standards will go down. We are expecting that there will be more improvements where you saw you need to do more. We are expecting you to do more. But also the other thing that you are concerned with as a portfolio committee, I think that honorable members are still going to raise it in detail with you regarding on how do we measure impact on services that we have delivered to our young entrepreneurs in terms of investments. So because I think it's important that we need to measure the impact rather than us getting a report that talks about numbers only and how money is spent, but we don't know exactly on whether there's value for money and whether there's economic growth and whether young people are being assisted. You do follow-ups or you just give them those grants and they go and work and then you don't measure whether there is a success or a good story to tell or not. So I think it's one thing that I'm sure we'll want to see as the portfolio committee in measuring impact on the projects that you are delivering on, so that we can be sure that really, and we can be confidently saying as the portfolio committee, really the NYDA is changing the lives of young people for betterment. So I just wanted to make those few remarks. but we commend you for the work, the good work that you've been doing in the years that you've been there, CEO, as CEO. Over to you, honorable members. Any clarity seeking question? So I have how many hands? Babu Ngobo? Honorable Masondo?
Honorable Sakweni as well, Chair. Sorry, my hand function don't work.
Okay, Honorable Ntlangwini, Honorable Rongo, Mpiti and Masiko. In that order, Babu Ngobo?
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members, and to the NYDA officials as well. Chairperson, I have a few questions, and they are all in relation to young persons with disabilities. So under Program 2, under Youth-Supported Non-Financial Business Development Intervention, I just want to know from the NYDA how many young persons with disabilities benefited from this non-financial business development support in the 2020-21 financial year. And also, Chairperson, I think that the NYDA must be commended for ensuring that their programs target young persons with disabilities as well. And I just want to find out from the NYDA if internally as an agent, they have met their employment equity target for persons with disabilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Babu Ngobo. The next honorable member.
It's Honorable Masondo, Chairperson, thank you. I would like to greet you again. Firstly, I would like to thank the NYDA, the effort that is putting forward for our youth, and even the progress that is happening in the regions. I see the programs are continuing even in my region. In Hartsibande, last 2 months we had the training of the beneficiaries. They were in a hall. Then they were given all the necessary things that they're supposed to get. I want to commend that. Then I have just few questions. What progress have been made in the implementation of the ERP system to date? Have all regional managers been able to monitor the program? If not, why not? If yes, what were the outcomes? What, if any, have the key challenges been identified? Has the NYDA been able to offer non-financial business development interventions for the beneficiaries in the department's sanitary dignity program? If not, why not? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Masondo. Honorable Ntlangwini.
Thank you very much, Chair, and my apologies for joining the meeting late. I just want two clarity-seeking questions. One, you have already dealt with it, Chair, to ask them how do they monitor persons that they are giving the grants to, and what I want to add as to do they apply, who identify them, to see that there are a fair distribution to the grants that they are to help persons with disabilities and the youth. So there must be a fair process as to how young people access these grants. And then the second one, I don't know, did I hear the CFO correctly? She talked about staff loans. Now, what I want to find out, does the NYDA give the staff loans, and on which basis? Because then it's a matter of a little bit of a concern, Chair, if staff also get to loan from the little resources that are already in the NYDA, then they need to relook at the structure as to who are accessing these loans as staff members, of the NYDA, and how do they pay it back? Is there an interest in paying those loans back and so forth? I've heard something about staff loans when she was taking us through to the financials. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ntlangwini. Maybe to add on that one, let's check regarding the staff loans that you're talking about. Maybe let's hear from them whether they do have a policy that is guiding them in dealing with staff loans. Honorable,
it was me, Chair.
Song.
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to honorable members and the NYDA Chair. Chair, mine won't be questions, but to commend the work of the NYDA, number one, and that now that we are having a board, it's going to make the CEO's work easier, and that they will be reachable from all corners, Chair. As I always mention, Chair, that the NYDA is there most of the time in the urban areas, Chair. A person from deep down Lena, we were busy with door-to-doors, campaigning all parties for elections. When we go to the rural areas, to the informal settlement, young people still do not have clarity or still do not understand how NYDA operates. So I hope now that we have a board, everything will be, the work will be much easier. They will go out and reach out to every young people in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Shongo. Honorable Mpiti. Masondo, may you please lower your hand?
Thank you very much, Chair. Again, a very good day to all honourable members as well as the NYDA. Chair, I'd like to join my colleagues in commending the NYDA on its annual performance. I think they've done exceptionally well, and I think that should be complimented. But I do think, ultimately we have to put that against, the challenges that we face in the country, particularly as it relates to young people. And I think that, as has been mentioned, 7 consecutive clean audits is something that should be indeed complemented, but should be connected with the continued cries from young people across the country in terms of the usefulness and the help that the NYDA has for them. And so I think, now that the NYDA has been able to show its competence in terms of its financial records and in terms of governance of the institution, it really now needs to move on to the next step, which is really trying to be able to deal with the perception problem that the NYDA continues to have. And I think that really requires an integrated strategy from within the NYDA, and I hope together with the new board, that will be one of the top priorities of the NYDA to make sure that it continues or at least reaches out to those particular cries that young people have in this country in regards to its services. I think that really is the next frontier for the NYDA to be able to do, and we cannot negate those cries of young people, particularly in a time where we are seeing youth unemployment at such a high point in our country and in fact the world. We really need to really stop speaking about or dismissing perceptions, but we need to now confront them so that this entity can really, on both sides of governance and financial records and financial competence, speak to the issues that young people are raising on the ground. Chair, there's just a number of questions for me that I would just like to find out from the CEO and the team at the NYDA. The first one is really to appreciate the response of the CEO to my letter in regards to a number of issues I had raised relating to the services of the NYDA. And I'd just like to follow up on a number of things. The first one is, does the NYDA have an audit report of the functioning of tools within the NYDA offices? This relates to computers, Wi-Fi. Do we know how many computers work and how many don't work? Has there been an audit that has been conducted on those particular issues? I appreciate the fact that that there is a plan to have tools functioning by at least the 31st of March 2022. But I think it's important for us to understand, how many young people have not been able to actually access these type of services within the offices and be able to deal with that as fast as possible. Just in regards to the issue of being able to connect young entrepreneurs and their products to a more commercial market, because I think that's really fundamentally the biggest issue that young people have, is having a business idea or having a business and not being able to break into the market and not being able to have the right connections to people who can really break through their product into the market or into the South African market. So I really think that there's a huge gap that exists in the way in which we handle market linkages, particularly for up and coming entrepreneurs. And I think that is something that really needs to really be looked at as much as possible. So I'd really like to find out, in terms of the steering committee that has been put in place by the NYDA with the Department of Small Business and Trade and Industry, what type of concrete and practical steps have come about from the steering committee? How exactly, is there a plan to really grow that element of market linkages, particularly between entrepreneurs and big business in the country? I think when I asked this question the last time, the CEO,
Mpiti, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, am I audible? Apologies for that. Yeah. I don't know where you lost me. Chair, where did you lose me?
The last question you raised, we didn't hear it.
Oh, all right. Chair, I was speaking in regards to the market linkages within assisting entrepreneurs, particularly as it relates to entrepreneurship, and being able to really speak directly to speak broadly to the issues that young entrepreneurs have in regards to accessing or bringing their product into the market. And so I was saying that it's very important and fundamental that we really upskill that particular sector within the NYDA to ensure that the entrepreneurs that we have right now are able to bring out their products into the market, and they need to be given the tools and the skills to be able to know which rooms they need to knock at, which people they need to connect to. And I think for a young entrepreneur who finds themselves in the township or finds themselves in a rural area, is going to struggle to get a product out and have it in the shelves of Pick n Pay if they don't know how to go about it. And so we really need to focus primarily on upskilling our market linkages aspect, so that we can have young entrepreneurs breaking out into the market as much as possible. So my question was, Chair, in terms of the steering committee that has been set up by the NYDA, with the Department of Small Business Development, Department of Trade and Industry, what type of solutions and what type of practical maneuvering has come out of that particular committee to assist young people to be able to connect and break out into the commercial market? And then also just some more clarity in regards to the partnership that the NYDA has established with Clicks and Unilever. What type of work has been done there, because it is related to the market linkages that we've been speaking about in the committee in regards to entrepreneurs. All right, and then just to speak on the study or the evaluation that was done in terms of the success rate of businesses, youth-owned businesses that receive funding from the NYDA. I'm aware that there's been a 72% success rate for those businesses to make it to the second year. And so my question really is to find out in what type of timeframes are we looking at survival rates of youth-owned businesses? Are we only looking at it from a point of surviving a year? Are we saying surviving 5 years? Because I think that's very important. It's important because we know that in South Africa, SMMEs, small businesses in this country, don't make it to 5 years. In fact, the stats around that say that over 80% of those businesses don't see the 5th year in terms of business. And so if we are saying that, well, we have a 72% success rate of, businesses receiving funding from the NYDA, what happens to the 3rd year? What is that statistic for the 3rd year? What is that statistic for the 4th and 5th year? Because that will really start to give us a thorough indication of what exactly is happening with youth-owned businesses and where exactly we need to put in intervention mechanisms to be able to increase that percentage as much as possible. And I think that's very important that we consider that, and I'd really be interested to know those particular figures.
Maybe I want to add something regarding to add on what you just raised now.
Sorry, Chair.
I think the other thing that we need NYDA to share with us is on whether they do monitor young entrepreneurs who are doing business with whether government departments at national or provincial and local municipalities. If they do business with the three spheres of government, whether their companies are being paid within 30 days, so that they ensure that their business are not run down by non-payment of the services that they are providing to the three spheres of government by young people are not affected. Because you see, it's something that we have never raised with themselves, but I think it's something that they need to look at it if they haven't done it. Because most young entrepreneurs companies are being bankrupt and are dying a slow death. Young people, you'll hear them complaining that they can't continue with their businesses because certain government departments or municipalities are not paying them on time. Or they will say sometimes there's allegations that some of the officials who are at finance are dealing with payments of their companies. They will want them to give them something first before they attend to their invoices. So I think if they haven't done that, maybe it's time that they need to look at that also. To assist our young people so that to grow their businesses. Because if you see they are not paid on time, that also has a negative bearing to their companies. So I'm sure it needs to be attended to. I'm just reminded by what you just presented, Honorable Mpiti. Okay, you can continue.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my next question will relate to the integrated youth development strategy, and I just want to understand from the CEO that there's I don't want to say apparently, but there's obviously, I'm assuming, budgets that have been tied into making the development strategy successful as much as possible. Do we have an idea exactly which departments are part of that particular strategy? Are there any monitoring indicators for those particular departments in terms of how exactly they plan to upscale the youth development and skills and growing the manpower of young people, particularly in the formal economy? And so what type of considerations have been made in terms of those departmental budgets? How do they look like? What are the indicators for those departments? I think that would be very important. And then just the next thing is just to say that I think we've been constantly as a country been speaking about the idea around data and the idea around the importance of the growing nature of the digital economy in the country and the potential that it has to really unlock job opportunities for young people. And so I really think this really also needs to be one of the top priorities, that at the end of this term the NYDA and the broader youth population need to have made huge advances in terms of this particular struggle, in terms of making data more accessible to communities across this country. And so it is fundamental that we don't leave this sixth term of Parliament without having a definitive commitment that data will be more accessible for all young people as part of the growing nature of the digital economy. And so I don't think the strides that we need to make in this particular area need to be superficial. I think they need to be direct, head-on confrontation of the struggle that young people have around data. And so I think a lot of the work that has been done, in my view, has been very minimal in this particular aspect. And I think it speaks broadly not only to the NYDA, but to government as a whole. We have not sufficiently tapped into this particular sector, and we need to make huge leaps going forward around the data issue. Chair, I'm happy with the initiatives, and I think we can broadly agree that the YES program has not been able to cultivate the type of expectations that it was promised to do. And so as a vehicle for creating job opportunities through that program, we need to learn that it's just not working on the ground. And so ideas around being able to strengthen or to be able to think out of the box in terms of how we actually, create job opportunities and create skills development amongst young people needs to be looked at. So I'm happy that we are pushing for the employment tax incentive to be something that is strengthened, because that's one of the ways in which we can be able to create those job opportunities for young people. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that a more transversal approach that is very firm in terms of M&E, that is very firm in terms of being able to really cultivate the intervention that government needs to make in terms of working with the private sector to be able to be a creator of those jobs or job opportunities needs to be fundamental, and it needs to be it really needs to be more creative. So I guess my question there in regards to that is what type of movement are we making in terms of that? creating that inclusive market and really just trying our best to get young people working again. And obviously this relates to the work that the NYDA does with, for example, the presidential youth committee desk, and the type of strides that have been made in that particular side of things. Chair, and I think it's really great to see that we are moving forward with trying to really show the NYDA as an institution that can win back the trust of young people. And I think that needs to be, in closing, the biggest priority going forward is we need to win back the trust of young people, and be able to show that this institution lives and breathes on the ground, on the streets, for young people to be able to have that access and the know-how to build a strong, youth contingent that contributes to the economy of this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mpiti. I think there are issues which I feel strong that the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, especially Dr. Bernice, if she's part of the meeting or whoever is coming from that youth branch from the department, which I feel strong that they need also to respond to the things that you have raised, so that we know on what is the department doing in terms of their role and their responsibility in doing monitoring of other departments regarding some of the issues that you have raised, but also they must also tell us on what is it that they are doing, especially them in that youth desk, in regarding the decreasing of the high rate of unemployment, whether they do have a strategy on how youth unemployment should be improved by whether government or a private sector. I'm not sure, but they must also share with us the things that they are doing in partnership with the NYDA. So I think after the questions by honorable members, we would like to hear from the department first, and then the NYDA can respond. Over to you, Honorable Masiko.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and greetings once again to yourself, the honorable members, and the colleagues on the platform. Firstly, Honorable Chairperson must convey a word of appreciation to the President. We have received through the media platforms the appointed members of the National Youth Development Agency, and ours is to congratulate them. What really excites me most, Chairperson, is the number of females that have been appointed, including the information that we have received that both the executive chairperson as well as the executive deputy chairperson are females, which really is a move in the right direction in giving credit where it's due to female performance. And we really are wishing the entire board well in their term of office. Secondly, Chairperson, we really do hear that it's quite dangerous to applaud the fish for swimming. But I think if there is, an extraordinary work that has been done, given the circumstances that we know that the CFO has been steering the ship under with the absence of the board, we must, or I must join the colleagues who have applauded the work that has been done by the NYDA. It is excellent work and performance, Chairperson, throughout the financial years. We are seeing progress, and that must be commended, including meeting their performance targets as well as their financial targets. It is really we've seen their ability to remain clean due to their continued commitment to good governance and strong internal control environments. And with beg as CEO, as chairperson had noted, that we don't want to see any regression when the board finally takes office. We would like to see you moving to greater heights. And I think that would really make us happy as the portfolio committee. Chairperson, I might fall into the trap of repeating questions that have been asked by honorable members. I have really been having an unstable network, but I've tried to move to a better space now and move firstly to deal with issues of budget allocation and expenditure. In terms of the intangible assets, we can see that on page 169 of the annual report that over 37 million has been spent on intangible assets. And it is noted there that of that 12 million and 21 million have been spent on software development in-house, and 21 million has been spent on software under development respectively. Now, the question that one wants to ask the CEO is, what is the difference between these two? If he could briefly explain to us. The next question is that it is also stated that the increase in intangible assets is due to milestone payments made to the ERP system under development. How long, I think Chairperson would like to know, how long will this process take? In terms of write-offs under operational costs, it is noted in the report on page 181 that a total of over 80,000 has been spent on write-offs. We'd request the CEO to please explain in detail what these write-off expenses are related to. In terms of the legal fees, we can see that over the last 2 years, the NYDA has spent over $1 million on legal fees. What are these legal fees for? And also, are they related to previous matters relating to the irregular expenditure? And in terms of the HR matters, during the 2020 and 2021 financial year, it's noted that 47 staff left the NYDA due to the expiry of contracts. And we know that it has been quite a tedious process of ensuring that there's a full staff complement due to also the inexistence of the board. But one would like to know, what designations did these staff hold at the NYDA? Moving to the key performance areas and targets under Program 2, we do, in fact, we must again commend the performance and the meeting of AMA targets for all the programs. But in terms of Program 2, there is an unmet target which speaks to the number of youth supported with business consultancy services. Where we had the CEO mentioning the fact that the voucher program faced some ICT systems or challenges. So one would like to know, has this matter been resolved? And lastly, Chairperson, one would like to speak to the issue of the return on investment, which you have also touched on at length, Chairperson. And I think it's important for us as a committee, a CEO, to get, an idea on whether through these reports that you are compiling, or through the research and policy areas that you are looking at, whether we are able to ascertain on whether the investments that we are making, especially on the job related areas, because we have made mention that we are looking at sustainability in terms of job, but that will be facilitated by the nature of the job preparedness trainings that we are providing young people. So it's important for us to ascertain as a committee on the reports that you are producing, especially your surveys that you have conducted, if any of them are dealing with issues of return on investment. If I may also make an example, Chairperson, on one of the channels yesterday, I was listening to a youth and also some communities complaining about the EPWP program. But what is important, or what one was able to draw from that, is the lack of training to ensure that there is some form of progression, that whomever is participating on the EPWP program is able to then progress to other job opportunities through the training that is provided through that program. So one would like to link it to programs such as the NYS program, as well as the skills development program that the NYDA is offering to young people. So that CEO in totality would speak then to the nature of research and development that you are doing to ensure that young people do find some form of sustainability in the jobs that are provided to them. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Masiko. Honorable Sheriff.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to everybody. Just as colleagues previously had done, I think well done and congratulations is in order to the NYDA. I think the CEO and the CFO is doing a great job, so do keep it up. However, when we meeting 96% of targets is really good, and the spending that's being done by the NYDA is good. But when we find ourselves in a position where, we're reaching targets and we're doing what has to be done, we have to go back and ask ourselves, how do we do better? And I think a lot of the targets can be increased and perhaps expanded so that it gives the NYDA a little bit more of a challenge. We would hate for anybody or the organization to become complacent. So I think challenging yourselves can only do better as an organization, but also the more reach you have, the more young people you're able to assist. And that should always and ultimately be the goal. Chairperson, I also want to just touch on the 55 million write-off for impairment reconciliation over 2 years. 55 million is a lot of money. And so I imagine that the NYDA has gone back and looked at mitigation strategies in order to look at how to rectify this. I mean, naturally, if you're going to give loans out and people cannot pay it back, what do you do in that situation? And part of answering that question is also looking at what sort of support is given to young people to make sure that they have every opportunity of success. It's one thing to have reaching targets of giving X amount of grants, giving X amount of loans, and assisting financially to young people and their businesses. But it's another thing to sort of look at how do we ensure success and a high success rate so that we don't lose money at the end of the day. And this goes back to what the chair was saying, what we need to look at, how do we measure, monitor and evaluate impact. And again, impact and what Honorable Piti said about sustainability and how long businesses last is important, but also what sort of support is the NYDA giving when young people are facing different obstacles and barriers that may not necessarily always be a financial thing or financial way to solve it. Chairperson, I wanted to ask about the Solomon Maslangu Scholarship. Just maybe give some information on how many people benefited from the scholarship, how much was spent, and what are the measures in place to support students. Again, we need to be careful not to fall into the trap where all you do is give the money out and then wash your hands and walk away. Especially students need as much assistance as possible when going through the studies and going to different institutes of higher learning. So what are some of the measures that are in place to assist students that might need assistance other than, again, financial assistance? I wanted to find out what work is being done with linking spheres of government with young people with regards to infrastructure. oftentimes when I speak to young people that are starting out businesses or that have business ideas, one of the main things that come out is a space to be able to run a business from, or at least do admin from, and sort of a working space where they can go that has all the resources, Wi-Fi, scanners, where they can, tables, chairs, where they can bring their own sort of computers and stuff that need to happen. So as I'm sure the CEO would know, there are currently young people who are involved in setting up collaborative workspaces in CBDs and places that are, central to young people in different cities. And so I just wanted to find out, is there a role that the NYDA is playing, or perhaps a suggestion to look at a way, you can link, say, for example, a municipal office, a municipal building that may not be used at its full capacity, to sort of transform it and make it a working space where young people can come through and have space, electricity, running water, that have space to be able to do this work. I also wanted to get more clarity on what the NYDA sees their coordinating role in the youth sector as, and how will this ensure effectiveness and essentially eliminate duplication of work, without also creating a sort of monopoly where other young people might not break into the sphere where you might operate. And then lastly, Chair, for me, I think collaboration
Recording
is
stopped.
important. And I think collaboration with young people in various sectors is where the future lies. And I say this because as a young person, I find myself being connected in networks of young people who are essentially playmakers in the different industries that they belong to. And it is these young people who are coming up with new ideas and new ways of doing things, and innovation on how we essentially see the world and how we see the future, almost moving in a more technological design, innovative space. And, it's absolutely important to look at the more traditional and historical employment roles, which I think is very important. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that the NYDA cannot look to the future and collaborate with young people to ensure that those spaces that will become available are indeed occupied by young people. And in turn, collaboration with each other and networking with each other provides the opportunity to create more employment spaces, to create spaces that were never there before, and to just sort of find ways in which young people are going to move into the future and into a more digital centered world. And this is a little bit concerning when it does take the NYDA a long time to catch up. But I hope with the new board and the skills and the knowledge that the new board possesses, that the NYDA can look at new ways and more creative ways to start working in spaces where young people occupy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sharif. Honorable Piri.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm tempted a bit, but mine, I don't have a question. I want to advise and also appreciate, Chair. There's one thing that we are missing normally as members of the portfolios and the community at large. We only concentrate on always questioning, but we need not to forget to applaud the good work that is done by the NTT. Chair, I want to drive the attention to,
Sorry, Piri?
Yes.
You said we've been commending, most members have been commending the NYDA. Since we started, they've been commending. Maybe it's when we were traveling, but they've been commending NYDA. Okay, you can continue.
I'm still, okay, thanks. Mine, I just wanted us to also advise and look it in a different way together with the NYDA, Chair, while everybody's saying, even us, myself, to say there's a high unemployment rate. Therefore, as much as the NYDA is busy assisting young entrepreneurs into building the business, and we have a stock of how many young people have been assisted. But at the same time, my interest is that as much as we want to cap the unemployment, the NYDA, do they have a database of how many young people have been employed into those businesses? Therefore, where does it take us as a country into capping the unemployment rate? Because I believe when you are assisting businesses to employ, therefore it must also balance the graph of the country to say there's high unemployment rate of young people versus, the intergovernmental strategy that they are having to place young professionals or young graduates who are not employed to sector department. How about if it's possible, checking with the strategy and the Act itself, when you still have a database of young graduates who've got capacity to bring strategic expertise into young businesses or to enterprises that you're funded as NYDA, as an entity, then how do we place those young graduates to certain businesses and support? Because we are speaking about even the lifespan of those businesses. But if we can put and inject expertise of under those graduates who have graduated and they are not employed, we beef up the businesses that were funded. It might also lead us to have a long-term lifespan in those businesses, and they become major enterprises or major businesses that in the near future will be proud and say, this is our legacy. I wanted to make that point and proposal to the portfolio committee, as much as all of us, even myself, even outside, I'm not referring to only members of the portfolio, but outside here, we are unable to narrate the good story and always tell the people, or there are positive things that are happening, even though we can speak amongst ourselves. But let us have a different strategy and change into speaking positivity while we are not ignoring the negativity that are happening in the government at large. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Mr. Khanacha Emmanuel, may you please respond?
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and to the honorable members, to the CEO and CFO of the NYDA, and all the staff that is here. I'm currently acting Chief Director, Chair, in the unit, as Dr. Benis Tlhagala is currently out of the country. I've noted the questions that you have asked. I will try and respond. I noted 3, Chairperson. The first one was on how we as a department currently monitor other departments in terms of the youth development work that they do. That is the first one. So to respond, Chair, there are 2 ways that we currently implement. The first one is that because of the National Youth Policy that has been approved by Cabinet, Chair, we request on a quarterly basis government departments and those other entities that implement youth development to report on a list of indicators that are contained in the National Youth Policy, right? The chairperson and the members will remember that a few months, I think it was in the first week of June, we came and presented the monitoring and evaluation framework for the youth policy, including some of the indicators that are contained there, to ensure that the policy does not only remain a policy gathering dust, but it is implemented by all of us who've committed to policy implementation. So on a quarterly basis, we do develop those National Youth Policy monitoring reports, but also we convene what we call the National Youth Machinery Forum, Chair, where departments, private sector and civil society organizations meet on a quarterly basis to discuss and plan around common youth development programs for the country. So as we speak now, Chair, there is a youth machinery forum that is taking place in another platform. And unfortunately, I'm not attending because I'm here, but the meeting is taking place. And I think the attendance has been positive from stakeholders. And then I think it's something that we can build on going forward to strengthen reporting and accountability from the rest of us as implementers of youth development. So the second question, Chair, was on the issue of the high youth unemployment and what is our role in collaborating with the NYDA to work towards its decrease and elimination. So indeed, as all of the members have lamented, youth unemployment is a critical crisis that is facing the country. And I would say that there are really efforts that are starting to show in different components of society. The NYDA, as you've been commending the whole morning, is also doing a lot of positive work in dealing with issues of unemployment through funding of enterprises and capacity building. But what we do as a department, in addition to supporting the NYDA in terms of the work that it does, Chair, we are currently working on a program that we call the 4IR Youth Skills Program, which will aim to really help transition young people into the careers of the fourth industrial revolution through training and also placement for learning. So I do remember that previously Dr. Tlhagala had mentioned this previously in the portfolio committee. So that program is now being finalized in terms of the final details. There are memorandums of agreements and memorandums of understandings which are currently being drafted and finalized with different departments, be they at the education field and also the private sector, by the way, because we know that the best way to deal with unemployment is through collaboration between government and the private sector. So that program is going to be processed to cabinet very soon so that we can then get the necessary buy-in that we require from different components of government. That is just one. The chairperson, I also want to mention that we are one of the departments which had made proposals, submitted proposals to the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative platform when they were requesting proposals for programs to be funded as part of phase 2 of that particular intervention. So the department made numerous proposals for consideration, but I think one of the things that we really appreciated was that the NYDA was able to then also receive approval and funding on some of the interventions that it has. I think they've presented previously on the Challenge Fund and initiatives such as that. So that's part of what we are doing, Chairperson. However, in addition, in line with our mandate as a department, we've really supported the NYDA and tried to help reposition it through the NYDA amendment bill, which was brought to this platform a number of times in order to deal with the challenges that were mentioned before, a broad mandate that is unfunded, challenges in terms of governance if the board is not able to correct, all of those challenges that were mentioned before. With an amendment bill that is sitting in the purview of the department, we are trying to help reposition the NYDA into an entity of the future in line with their service delivery model, which the CEO has indeed touched on, even in today's platform. So we are assisting them in that particular space of legislative review. They are also participating in that process. They've been consulted thoroughly. And in terms of policy development, Chairperson, we've also partnered very strongly with the NYDA in the development of the national youth policy that we currently have. We know that the policy is an advocacy tool which tries to make sure that youth development is not in the periphery of our activities as government, as civil society and the private sector, really placing youth development in the center. So working with the NYDA, we were able to develop that policy and deliver it to cabinet for approval last year. And we're still working together with the NYDA to develop the integrated youth development strategy, which really aims to deepen implementation of the youth policy. So currently the strategy has been developed. It is being taken through the clusters en route to cabinet for for adoption and approval. So that's just one of the things that we're doing with the NYDA chair in the area of deepening youth services, including in the areas of employment. The last point I can mention on this one, we worked with the NYDA during COVID-19 to develop a study or to conduct a study on youth and COVID-19, just to assess what is the extent of the challenges that young people have faced as a result of COVID-19 in the areas of youth unemployment, those that are youth with disabilities, young women who've had to be laid off from work, those that cannot go to school. So we worked very strongly with the NYDA to develop that study. And it is now finalized, but just needs to be approved and published through the relevant channels in the department. I think I've spoken about the issue of the proposals for the second phase of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. I won't repeat that point. Now, the last question was, I think maybe they are interrelated, our partnership with the NYDA. As I've just said, we do work together on a variety of platforms. On a quarterly basis, the department receives reports from the NYDA, and it assesses them, and then it processes them to the relevant channels in order for the NYDA to receive the quarterly tranche in order for its operations to not be impeded. So there has never been a time where the NYDA has not received a tranche because of any delay in the department or anything of that nature. We also assist the minister in terms of their assessing their operational plans, their strategic plans and annual performance plans, etc. So that is just some of the initiatives that we do to collaborate and ensure that the work of the NYDA is not impeded in any way, but it is rather enhanced in order for it to have much better impact. So I think that's in brief, Chairperson and members, what I can say about some of the areas where we work with the NYDA. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel. Over to you, CEO.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and to the honourable members for the words of appreciation, but the questions as well. If I can start with Honourable Ngobo, he had asked a question around Program 2 and assistance of young persons with disabilities. Out of the 8,000 young people who received non-financial business support interventions, 360 were young persons with disabilities. His second question was related to employment equity. In the HR section of the annual report, we have indicated that we've met our employment equity target for employment of persons with disabilities, but we continue to look to means and ways that we can exceed that target. Honorable Masondo asked about the implementation of the ERP system and its the program and its interaction with our regional management. The shift from a manual to a more digitized environment is a challenging one. It requires a theory of change to be undertaken. And as an idea, our approach has been to, one, train internally as effectively as possible to allow usage of the new system and to ensure our staff are capacitated to use the new system. Two has been that we communicate effectively with our stakeholders
Recording
so that
in progress.
they understand how to utilize the system, but also to have back office support channels. So if a young person is trying to book training and they're struggling, there's a chatbot which can assist them, there's a call center which can assist them, so that we have the right back office support to support the transition to digital. And then the last aspect is unblocking challenges that may occur. So from time to time, we come across issues. What we do is we have a weekly steering committee with the entirety of management. We look at what are the issues that have come up for the week, how we resolved on them. And this is also just to reduce blockages, you know. I always say to the team, I don't ever want a young person to be told the system is down at NYDA. We are not an organization which must go down here. This is not, you know the frustration as a citizen, you go to Home Affairs and they tell you the system is down. So yeah, that's not what we want. So really that's the strategy we're following in digitizing our services. Honorable Maslangu asked the second question about sanitary towels. We receive ongoing referrals from a differential government programs, one of them being the sanitary towels, and we funded a number of young women in starting up their own enterprises in sanitary towel development. Honorable Natasha asks about the process for grants. So what we've tried to do as much as possible is keep the process of application open and transparent. Yeah, in that any young person, as long as they are a South African citizen and below the age of 35, can apply for products and services. If a young person also feels that they've been unfairly declined, they have a process where they can appeal that decision. It's looked at by an independent committee. On an ongoing basis, I've shared with portfolio committee members the detail of young people who have been funded by the NYDA, so that there is no challenges, so that we are openly disclosing young people who have been funded. Yeah? There has been a number of questions around the monitoring and evaluation for youth entrepreneurship, but also the grant program. Now, to date, we've done 3 M&E reports, and through the secretary, I'm happy to share all of those reports. And all of them have indicated that the program is delivering a positive return on investment. They've also suggested policy changes, right? So they have recommended from time to time how we should amend the policy so that young people derive a greater impact from the work that we're doing. And we've taken those policy recommendations into regard and we've implemented them. The intention is to get the 4th report now, which I will share with community members as soon as I receive it, and to come and present to you on the detailed findings. But very much so, it is our view that we should not continue with programs that are not deriving success. And that there's no program that is perfect. Where there are challenges, we must fix those challenges, make policy amendments so that we make the program more sustainable for young people and more sustainable for job creation. Honorable Flongo, I think it was more of a comment on rural areas. And I think the comment is well noted. I mean, over the last 3 years, the NYDA has expanded its service offering from 15 sites to 44 centers. What we also have now is a number of technological applications. The NYDA ERP system, the National Pathway Management Network, SAYouth.mobi, and the Empower app, which all connect young people to different opportunities closest to the place in which they live. So we are trying to deepen that rural access, and I'm sure the board will also take a very specific view on access, and we will present the board strategy on access to the committee as well. Also to take this opportunity to wish Honorable Flongo a happy birthday for yesterday. Then I think Honorable Impiti raises important questions around the perception of NYDA. And again, I'm sure the board and management will take that comment on board and will present to the committee the strategies that we are following. As I indicated in my response to Honorable Natasha's question about the process that we're following, about openly disclosing who our beneficiaries are, those are steps that we're taking to try and correct some of the perception issues. In terms of the functioning of tools, the last audit report that I had received was that 3 of our offices do not still have access to Wi-Fi or free Wi-Fi, and we had an issue with about 36 desktop computers that were non-functioning. The team has assured me that those 3 offices and those 36 desktops will all be replaced by the end of the year, so we should be fully functional in that aspect. Again, Honorable Impiti raises important questions about, yes, we can provide access to finance, we can provide access to skills, but the big one to crack is access to market. So just some of the work that we've done around that is The steering committee, so I think there's two ways to look at access to market. Is from a product perspective, we've undertaken the partnership with the South African National Bureau of Standards, whereby we assist young people in getting their products accredited, so getting them on the shelves, whether it be at your big retailers. So subsidizing that process, because it is expensive for young entrepreneurs to get their products accredited. So I think that voucher that we provide for accreditation is really something innovative and creative in nature. Yeah? The steering committee looks at the JSE top 100 companies and looks at each of their value chain in procurement of goods and services. And that's why the DTI is important to that process. But then our lobby and advocacy work is to say to those companies, instead of spending lots of money on training and supplier verification, we've accumulated a database of young people or young enterprises who needs very specific levers of support. The main one being access to market. What are you doing as a big multinational in providing young people with that access to market support? And to give an example of Clicks and the partnership there is that Clicks has grown the number of suppliers that it utilizes, and these are many female-owned suppliers. It's grown it from, I think, 3 or 4 on the shelves to over 20 that are now on the shelf. And I'm sure Honorable Impiti, like me, doesn't necessarily go to the cosmetic section in Clicks here. But just take a walk one day and look at the number of products, locally based South African products, that are on the shelves there. And it's a similar partnership with Unilever, is assisting young, locally based providers in getting their product to market through large retailers and large multinationals. So it certainly is a process. The other area where there's a lot of work is that we've spoken about the product market, but on the service offering, you get a lot of young people who are running their construction businesses, right? But they run their construction businesses as a cash-based business because they struggle to scale their enterprises because they can't get a line of credit at Cash Build or Builders Warehouse. Yeah? So in that aspect, the committee is looking at establishing lines of credit for those young entrepreneurs at major retailers and hardware houses, because if that young construction company could get a line of credit of about 20,000 Rand or 40,000 Rand, it doesn't cost the government anything, but they're able to scale their work, right? Because they're able to buy, provide deliveries, provide construction work, get paid, repay their credit line, and create the cycle flow of money. So those are the aspects that the committee is dealing with in trying to track or trying to support access to market opportunities. In terms of survival rates, we measure on our M&E, we measure at 12 months, we measure at 24 months, and we measure at 60 months. Yeah. So this 4th report is going to be the first report that gives us analysis at 60 months. So I'm really excited to see that because the grant program has only been in operation for 5 to 6 years. So it's the first time we get line of sight of businesses that were funded 5 years ago. In terms of the integrated youth development strategy, I think Emmanuel has responded. I just wanted to pull up a quick slide for Honorable Impiti, just to show how in our mind we're looking at the integrated youth development strategy, because I think Honorable Sharif had a similar question related to it here. But I mean, if I just show there, is that beyond the 5 pillars, these are the departments that we really see having the indicators relating to the integrated youth development strategy. So one can see that the presidency is really driving economic transformation and job creation, supported by the Department of Employment and Labor, DTI, DSPD. In education and skills development, we see that the Department of Higher Education and Training is the driving force, together with the CETAs. In health, it's the Department of Health. In social cohesion, it's NYDA, DSPD, social development, as well as sports, arts, and culture. And in the youth machinery, it's the department working in collaboration with the NYDA. And in the IYDS, we did disclose all of the indicators, but we'll share them again. But really, to answer that question is what we're trying to build is more accountability in the sector, right? But also where targets are being missed, we say that, you know, it can't be missed if we've missed it in 1 year, what are we doing not to miss it in the next year and the next 5 years, you know? But also if you think about it, an annual integrated report on youth development is something which has never existed in South Africa, you know? So just as a reference point, everything that is going on, government mainly, but supported by private sector and civil society, it could be groundbreaking in us having a full landscape analysis of everything we're doing in the country. So that's the direction in which we're trying to drive our ideas. Fully agree with Honorable Impiti on the data opportunity. I've shared the broadband infrastructure fund. I'll share more information as it becomes available. Again, a point on the YES program. Look, without defending YES, I think they've done well. I think 65,000 workplace experiences is good. It's big. It's a big number. It's far off from the 1 million target that they set for themselves. They've got a new CEO at YES. I know we continue to meet with them and look at partnership opportunities that come up. But I would again encourage the committee to possibly engage YES, look at the work that they're doing in more detail, and make recommendations to them, because I don't think we must throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we can support YES to scale the work that they are doing. Honorable Masiko, the majority of the questions was for the CFO, so I'll ask him to come in there. But just on the intangible assets, so Honorable Masiko asked for the difference between software developed in-house and software under development. Software developed in-house was mainly the systems that were inherited by NYDA from Umsumbumfu and the Youth Commission. Yeah. So those were legacy systems. They sat on the balance sheet. They've been depreciated. But if you look at the carrying value, it's very small. There's very little value left in those assets. Software under development is the new ERP system which we've introduced. And because that system came online after the financial year, you'll see the movement of that from under development to developed in the next year's annual financial statement. So just to give clarity on that one, the CFO will respond to issues around write-offs, legal fees. Honorable Masiko also asked about the ICT challenges around the one. I'm happy to say that's resolved. It's been transitioned into the new ERP. That service provider was not paid, which I think was the right decision because they were holding the organization to ransom. Yeah? Honorable Sharif indicates to challenge ourselves on increasing targets. So the Portfolio Committee should receive, Honorable Minister approved the amended APP of the NYDA, which has now increased the targets based on the additional funding, really big targets which are in the amended APP. So I'm sure the committee should receive it. We sent the letter for tabling a couple of days ago. In terms of the Solomon Maslangu Scholarship Fund, that was introduced in 2014. At its scale, it took in about close to 1,000 students who were being supported. Because that was before fee-free higher education was introduced in South Africa, over the years, as fee-free higher education has become policy of government since 2016, we've shifted away and we've not taken new students into the program. Our preference has been to accommodate the existing students which we were part of the cohort and to ensure that they reach graduation. Really the model that was there was that those students would receive a full-time mentor and support in the program, yeah? And that would assist there, because we were always concerned about the high dropout rate also at a higher education level, you know. And really what we saw were better outcomes where young people had access to a counselor, a mentor, a guide which could support them, because the jump is big from basic education to higher education, from school into university or TVET college. And we saw good results, and we've shared that with the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and I believe they are implementing some of those recommendations. In terms of linking spheres of government to young people, it's certainly something we can explore. The Small Enterprise Development Agency, Shanduka, Black Umbrellas do provide that, which Honorable Sharif is referring to, of young people seeking office space or locations where they can do their work. I'll certainly explore about the capacity of local government to provide that to young people as well, a space to be able to work. But I also recommend, Honorable Sharif, young people check out the Empower app, which connects them to their nearest CEDA office, nearest NYDA office, nearest incubator as well, for that type of information and support. In terms of the coordination, I think I've expressed the view, but the view is really to try and drive more accountability in the youth sector, right? This goes beyond NYDA. There are many departments, entities, CETAs which sit with budget for youth development, right? And we have to drive accountability and meaningful change in the sector if we're going to impact on the lives of young people. I think Honorable Piri had a similar question around evaluation of programs, and we are evaluating these programs on an ongoing basis so that we derive return on investment for young people. I think I've answered all of the questions. Honorable support. Mentorship is critical for young people. More and more, we are realizing the value that a young entrepreneur derives from mentorship. The Small Enterprise Development Agency has a budget to pay for mentors. So where possible, where we fund a business, we ask CEDA to come in as a mentor. But equally, on the grant program, because NYDA has moved towards a grant model, the intention is that what you want is those grant beneficiaries pay it forward in a way that when they succeed in their business, we ask them to become mentors to new young people who are coming through the system. And that way you drive a culture of service and a culture of mentorship. Honorable Sharif also asked about the impairment. So the loan book of NYDA was mainly inherited from the Umsumbumfu Youth Fund, which followed both a small, medium, large, and micro enterprise loan fund. The strategy that we presented to the portfolio committee in the 5th administration was to say there is a large degree of loans outstanding. This is public money, and we must attempt to recover as much as possible. So we followed a strategy of encouragement of beneficiaries to pay back their loans, settlement agreements, legal enforcement where we couldn't do that, and lastly, attachments of assets. Because we were a development finance institution, or our development finance institution, the last point we made was that we would attach business assets where a business was unwilling to repay those loans and there was capacity to pay, but we would not take somebody's primary residence here. And where we got to was a point where we said, I think we recovered about 78% of capital value of loans which were outstanding. The balance beyond that could not be recovered or cannot. We still continue where we can to recover, but we work on a contingency basis here. So we don't want to throw good money at bad debt. So where we are able to recover, we do. But really, we've reached the last leg of that strategy now. Of recovery of loans here. Really, what we feel is the last grouping really just cannot afford to pay back what was outstanding. And now we've shifted the business model towards grants aimed at the micro enterprise sector. So I thought it important to answer that question. I'd like the CFO to come in just to respond to Honorable Masiko's questions on some of the financial line items.
Thank you, CEO. I think the first question, I think maybe I would like to answer is around the staff loans. There was a question around staff loan. How are they operated? There is a policy that exists. It's more of staff advances than staff loans, because obviously the limit is 5,000 rands per employee, but also it actually gets deducted on your next salary run. So it's just a matter of trying to actually assist our staff members when they are in need. But as I said, the policy puts a limit of 5,000 rands, and obviously we deduct the amount in the next month So it's more of an advance than a loan. But obviously, at the end of the financial year, we need to then record those amounts that are still outstanding and put them in as debtors. Then Honorable Masiko had a question as well in terms of the milestone payments to ERP. You know, the ERP system, I think the CEO has mentioned that it has gone live. We did go live in July. And obviously, we're busy actually making sure that all the modules are fully operational. There's already some testing that we are busy doing. So obviously, that system has gone live. On the operational costs, the issue of 80,000, which is asset write-offs. So obviously, if we do find that there's certain items or assets that actually are not working, we normally would write them off our asset register. So obviously, a laptop breaks and we can't actually fix it. We have to write it off. That's the reason why we have that 80,000 of write-offs sitting in operational costs. Legal fees, the 1 million rand that we spend on legal fees, it was mainly to deal with matters of the end of contracts, as there was a query around the fact that we've seen that there were about 42 staff members that left the entity in the previous financial year. And obviously, whilst contracts come and end, there will be staff members that will actually dispute their contracts ending, and we had to actually deal with it through our lawyers, and that's the reason for the legal fees. Thank you, Chair. I think I've covered the questions.
Thanks, CFO. There was also one question I didn't respond to on the Honorable Masiko's question on human resources. So a lot of employee contracts at management level came to an end during 2020 because it was COVID and the budget cuts were so severe. We had to take time in filling some of those vacancies. We've now filled all senior management, executive and management vacancies. There's 2 managers that are being recruited. The last 2 is the regional manager for the Free State and the regional manager for the Western Cape. Otherwise, we have filled vacancies, and we've also brought the vacancy rate down to about 6% overall for the organization, which is under the 10% recommendation of DPSA and the Auditor General. Chair, I think we've responded to the majority of the questions. If there's anything I've missed, please, members can feel free to raise it with me.
Thank you very much, CEO. I think what you have not responded to is what I've raised regarding monitoring if whether young people's businesses, they are not affected by non-payment by the 3 spheres of government after delivering services to them.
Yes, Chair. I think that's an important point. So what we're trying to do when we publish the report on integrated youth development is to indicate one, the reports from the National Treasury and the provincial treasuries on the payment of suppliers within 30 days, particularly youth-owned enterprises, to looking at it from a youth lens. But the other element is also to look at it from the perspective of the public procurement bill, right? We've set ourselves a target of saying 30% procurement to women and youth-owned enterprises. So in the report, we want to publish what is government actually achieving on that set-aside target that it set itself for the public procurement bill.
Okay. I think the other thing that we have not checked with you, as CEO, is whether in terms of the 30% preferential procurement for women, whether we have monitored government department and the municipalities if they are implementing it or not, because that should be of one of your interests as NYTA.
Yes, Chair. Our researchers are looking at that in the publishing of the 2021 report. So we will certainly, once we've concluded that research, we'll be able to give the committee a value on what government is actually achieving in that space.
Can we get Mr. Khanaga on what have they done in both the issues that I've raised with you now as a department in doing monitoring and evaluation?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's as recently as 2 weeks ago, we were having a discussion as the senior management in the department around the very same issue. And I think ours was on the 40% for women-owned businesses, 30% for youth, and 7% for businesses by those who people with disabilities. And I think you will see that in the annual performance plan that will be tabled very soon in the portfolio committee, there will be an indicator that confirms what the department is doing, right, in terms of tracking other departments' work around these particular targets. That will be number one. Number two, there's also a commitment on the part of the department itself to also reach these targets, to ensure that in our own procurement as a department, we are able to empower the businesses owned by women, youth, and persons with disabilities through our procurement spend. I can even share, I myself am part of different bid specification committees and bid evaluations committees, which obviously are towards procurement of certain goods and services. And the core discussion and the core agreement in many of these discussions is that we must ensure that we are not apologetic when it comes to spending, right, the allocations and resources that we have to empower businesses owned by women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So on the part of the department, there's also that particular work. And with the last point I'll make is that with the monitoring and evaluation framework that I spoke about earlier, Chair, for the National Youth Policy, we are also aiming to track what other departments are doing in the space of empowering young people's own businesses, specifically in terms of their procurement spend. So there will be an indicator that tracks that particular variable. Thank you.
Are you going to concentrate only in government or also in private sector? Because I think what we have observed as the committee is that you talk less about private sector.
Absolutely, Chair. I think it's a crucial point that you are making. But I think with government, there is already a low-hanging fruit, right, in terms of the budget that government departments spend. It is there, it is allocated. But indeed, we should not ignore the work of the private sector. With the advocacy related to the youth policy, we really want to ensure that both the private sector and civil society as a whole do commit to some of these national objectives that are there. So as part of our youth forum, the youth machinery that I spoke about earlier, Chair, these are ongoing discussions that we will continue to have to say that even those that are in the private sector should ensure that their own procurement spend is allocated to empowering businesses of young people and those of women and persons with disabilities. I think we do take lead from the President's office. I think we've seen some discussions happening between different government departments led by the presidency and the private sector and civil society to say, how do we all contribute to a much more conducive business environment, which benefits businesses by women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So we shouldn't ignore that call, as you say. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Khanaga. Honorable members, there are no further questions there.
No, from my side, Chair, I'm okay.
Okay. Silence means we are done. Thank you very much, honorable members, and Mr. Khanaka, thank you for your attendance. And thank you, Honorable Masigo. Thank you, CEO and CFO. We are looking forward to see you next year, I'm sure, or before next year, so that we give you an opportunity to come and make a presentation on the adjustment that was made to NYTA by National Treasury. So we'll look at our program and see how then we fit you in. But thank you very much for the good work that you are doing as an organization. We'll meet you with the new board, if not before the new board. They resume their duties. But thank you very much. We're done, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Have a good day further.
Okay. Thank you very much, honorable members. You are released, CEO. Neliswa, is anything that we need to discuss or to deal with? Or minutes?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Chair. Goodbye.
Oh, okay. Bye. Okay, honorable members, here are the minutes of the 9th of November, 2021. Can I get you say Pezula? Are you pants? Okay, honorable members, here are the minutes. Any correction? Page 1. These minutes were sent to honorable members by last week, if I'm not mistaken. Page 2. Any correction? Page 3. Page 4. Five. 6. content from Wipe. Awuphezulu kancane ku-6 content from Wipe ya email. Yaphansi sovalele into engifuna ukuyibheka. Okay, machubeka. 7. 8. 'Can I get any hand for to move for the adoption of the minutes? If there is nothing, can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes?
Chair, move for the adoption.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Mpiti. Honorable Mpiti has moved for the adoption of the minutes of the 9th November 2021. Can I get a seconder?
Is Masondo here? So.
Okay, Honorable Maslangu is seconding the adoption of the minutes. The minutes of the 9th November 2021 are duly adopted. The next set of minutes, it's only one.
Yes, Chair, it's this one.
Okay, if it's that, it's that we have come to the end of our meeting. And thank you very much, honorable members, for your attendance and for your participation. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the house is starting at 2 today, ne?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye.